All right, this next lesson is on chords. We've talked a little bit about chords. We talked about how some of the songs that you've learned have some chords in them. So a chord is just notes stacked on top of each other. You've seen it before in London Bridge is Falling Down. When you learned that song, that one had chords in the left hand playing. So those stacked notes have certain orders to them. So if you look at a major scale, let's go back to C major. There is a tonic chord, is what it's called in music theory. A major chord, tonic chord, and that is just the first, third, and fifth notes of that major scale. 1, 3rd, 5. Okay, that is the C major chord. C major chord. 3 notes. It's usually 3 notes stacked on top of each other. That's why it's sometimes also called a triad. Triad for 3. 3 notes stacked on top of each other. Tonic chord is that one. Another common chord is the subdominant, and the two other common chords are the subdominant and the dominant. Those ones refer to the 4th and 5th notes of the scale. So find the 4th note of the C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you play the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of that. And then you find the 5th note of the scale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1st, 3rd, and 5th of that one. This is the dominant in C major scale. This is the tonic chord, or the 1st chord. This is the subdominant, or the 4th chord, and this is the dominant, or the 5th. That is a very common set of chords that'll be used in many, many songs that you play. Okay, here's an example of using those chords together. Another name for chords is sometimes stacked arpeggios. It's really just notes that are put together in an organized way. Notes are stacked on top of each other. You might have chords that sound like this. Those are all chords, different ways of playing chords. So, a way to major chord, tonic chord, can be inverted. An inverted chord is when you take a note, take the bottom note of the chord, and you move it up to the top. So this is C, E, G. Take the C and move it up to the top. Here's the C. So here's C. Here's the first inversion of C. And then you can invert it again, take that E, move it up top, and then go back. So you have C, first inversion, second inversion, left hand the same thing, move the C up to the top, move the E up to the top, and then invert it again to go back to normal. That is chords. So, I've chosen a song that you know well, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, to make sure that it is not too difficult for you to figure out how these chords work. So, first we're going to be doing just the major chords for each chord in your left hand, but then we'll learn some inversions. The major chord will require that your hand move around a little bit. So, if you look at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the left hand, practice just the left hand by itself. As a matter of fact, for any of these lessons, if you need to, practice just one hand at a time before putting them together. That's going to make a big difference, I think, in some people's confidence levels. If it's difficult for you to play them both together, don't stress it, because it's difficult a lot of times to play things together. Even though I've been playing for over 20 years, sometimes it's really difficult for me to keep notes together the way that I'd like them to be able to play my hands, keep my hands organized and together. So play them separately if you need to. So let's look at the left hand of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. They have it started with a C major chord. And then it goes to an F major chord. So you'll have to find the F. And then it goes back to C major. And then back to F. So plan to use your 1, 3, and 5 the whole time. And then it'll actually go down to a G chord. Back up to C. Remember, this is the tonic, this is the dominant, or sorry, this is the tonic, this is the subdominant, and this is the dominant, if you remember, from our theory that we talked about earlier. This is a little bit of music theory for you. Kind of what it'll sound like. So here's it with the right hand. Excuse me. So those are your chords in your left hand. Once you become confident in playing them, I want you to try to play the whole song with both hands together. And then we'll try the second part. The second part has some inverted chords. And that actually means your hand is moving less around the keyboard because you'll have the inversions. So your left hand, for example, will start with a C major chord. And then it'll have an inverted F major chord. And if you remember when we did our finger training, which I'm hoping you're continuing to practicing those basic chords, this is one of the ones that I had you do. We're actually going to be using those ones because this is C, this is the dominant inverted, or the subdominant inverted, and this is the dominant chord inverted. C major. So you'll start here. I want you to follow the fingerings that I've said for the right hand. Get the right hand really comfortable with playing it, hoping that your ear will be able to help you know what you're playing, help you understand chords and how chords work. It's not super complicated right up front, but it gets very complicated. If you don't remember terms like tonic and subdominant and dominant, that's okay. We can review those later. That's music theory. But basically all you need to know is that a chord is notes stacked on top of each other. A major chord is the first, third, and fifth of that major scale. So for example, if we're playing in the key of A flat, for example. A flat is right here. Let's find A. Key of A flat. Let's find the scale. A flat. Whole step. Whole step. Half step. Whole step. Whole step. Whole step, half step. So you'll find those notes also, you'll find that scale in the set of scales that I gave you, which is organized. It's called the circle of fifths because we move up by fifths. You start with C, and then you go to the G, then you go to the D, then to the A. So C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how we organize those scales. Anyway, if you look at that, try to find the A flat scale. And then you have your third and your fifth. That's the A flat major chord. And then when you go to the subdominant, and then the dominant, some of the chords. So chords will add a lot to your music. Most popular music just has lots of blocked chords in them. That's when you just have block like that. We'll talk about broken chords next. Those are mostly known as arpeggios. We'll talk about those a little bit later. But for now, practice Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with your left hand playing these chords. Get your hands comfortable with the melody. Your right hand playing the melody, and get your left hand comfortable playing the chords. And as you continue to practice that, you'll be able to master what chords are like, and you'll be able to master switching quickly between chords. That's going to be the hardest part of this song, I think, is especially when you're doing the first part. Getting your hands comfortable. If you try to keep your 1, 3, and 5 together in that frozen in that position, but not super tense. You don't want it to be. That's not comfortable either. That's really hard. Look at how my hand was clenched up like that. You can practice that back and forth. That'll be a good way of practicing. That's the end of the lesson on chords.